Last night, I went and watched the brand new Robocop film, and I really liked it. A lot of people have all said, "Oh, it's alright, it's nothing special." No, it isn't. However, it does answer a lot of questions that the original Robocop film doesn't answer. Like, for instance, how much is left of Alex Murphy without all the armor on? And then it got me thinking, wait a minute, I have Robocop at home, which is the Robocop trilogy. Now, the whole story, in case you haven't watched it, involves a police officer named Alex Murphy, who and his partner Anne Lewis, who in the original I'm going to go by on this one, who in the line of duty and also on his first day in his new police station, he gets killed by a group of criminals led by a man called Clarence Boddicker. Now, Clarence Boddicker is actually Red from that 70s show. And one of the other ones, Emil, he ended up playing Dr. Robert Romano in ER. I don't know about the other two. I've never really looked into them. Um, so what happens is Lewis comes along, gets him after he's been shot badly and pretty much dead, and gets in hospital, etc., etc. And he then gets resurrected as RoboCop. Now, in the original version, RoboCop was played by Peter Weller, who, if you've watched Star Trek Into Darkness, you'll realise that he is actually Admiral Marcus. In case you wondered, that's what Peter Weller looked like at the time, and no, that's what he gets resurrected into, which is this RoboCop. As you can see, it's a huge difference between the new one and this one. So that, for instance, in the original one, Murphy slash RoboCop can't run, he can't jump, he's got one gun, he's slow. It's sort of every type of bullet just bounces off him. And I know it was a product of the 80s at the time. Everything was deemed to be futuristic. Um, Technological advancements were great. That's all well and good. But at the end of the day, people still need to do some of the basic things like walk properly, run if needed to. Just little things. But in the new version, because Joel Kinnaman RoboCop, his body is actually pretty much again another spoiler. If you haven't seen it already, the answer to the question "What's left of Alex Murphy" is effectively this: some of his brain, which he recognizes isn't his own, his face, his trachea, his windpipe, his lungs, and his right hand. And that's it. When I saw that piece on the film, I was like, oh, hang on, I know this is coming up. And it was a bit grim at first. But in this version, in the original version, I should say, they never show you. They only ever mention it in Robocop 2, where the doctor who's working on him at the time, after he's been rebuilt, says, you're nothing more than a couple of pounds of meat. You're not even a corpse. And it's basically implied that it's just Murphy's brain and some of his sort of, like, in terms of things like his stomach, so he can digest, so he can eat food and digest it. And basically, they say as well, it's to keep his organic stuff working properly and keeping him happy. Obviously, he has blood running through him for what's left of him. But like I said, they don't show you in the original one. Now, the other big difference is that the original film is an 18. In fact, all three films are 18s. I would like to point out I can't see why number 3 is 18, but I'll get onto that in a minute. However, the new one is a 12. And in a way, I am a bit disappointed, however, kind of slightly glad at the time, because if they had done it as an 18, that film would have been far, far more gruesome and probably would have had a very restricted audience. At least this way they can do both, and get away with it. Um, if you haven't watched the new Robocop film or any of the original ones, I suggest you watch them because they are actually quite good for the time that they were all made out. Like, for instance, the original one was made in '87, the second one I think came out in '89, and then the third one came out in '93. Don't quote me on these. I know the first one's 87 because I've just had a look on Wikipedia. And like I said, I'm going to add all the URLs down below so you can look them up properly if you really want to. The other big difference, obviously, is the suit. The suit in the original one is actually very, very bulky, and it's. If I show you a picture of it, you'll see what I mean. So that's the original suit, and as you can see, it's very bulky, very clumsy, and that's the reason why he actually can't do most of the stuff he used to be able to. I actually just read in here, it said it was originally made out of things like a very light titanium kind of covering, and it took something like 10 hours to put the whole thing on. But then when they made number 2, they went with fiberglass, which is a lot easier to mold, it's a hell of a lot lighter, and I think they did the same with the third one. But I've also found out that there was actually 7 versions of the film, of the suit itself. So that's why it changes colour. Only slightly, but you do notice these things. And they do the same thing in the new one. So, for instance, when Murphy says to Dennett, who's played by Gary Oldman, take this off, I want to see what's left, it's kind of like Lego in a way. So you have to imagine he's standing, so his legs, his arms, and his head and chest. So I think the best way to explain it, Iron Man, the first Iron Man film, when he suits up, do that in reverse. So the floor opens up, these arms come up, they grab his legs, detach them, pull them off. Then 2 more come up, they grab his arms, pull off, and then disappear. So you just see the hand float like this, and it's got a couple of veins sticking out of it. Then, use my hand. And then the bottom half, so the black part on the original Robocop, comes off. Then 2 more hands come up, clamp onto his chest, pull them off, and then find the last 2 come along, and they grab, because that's just plating on top, then they grab the final 2 pieces, pull them off, and then that also takes off the scalp, and then pulls that down, and then that is literally what is left of him, and he's absolutely terrified. Ed 209 in the new film, I think is much better than the original. But I tell you what, if they make a sequel to this Robocop film and make Robocop 2, as in the baddie, that could be brilliant. I mean, if they do that properly, that could be epic. So I'm going to leave that there. And like I said, the links for Wikipedia are down below. So take a look. Go watch Robocop. It probably won't be out for much longer because it's been on for a couple of weeks. So go watch it, enjoy it, and then if you have any ideas or thoughts on it, email me on here or whatever you like to do. You can find me on Facebook, no, not on Facebook, so that's my own private one, on Tumblr, Twitter, and under name Rob Brinlow. So give me a bell. I want to try and make these things global. See you later.